We've got Hurricanes 20mm cannons, we've got Spitfires with machine guns and cannons, we've got Typhoons with machine guns and rockets, we've got P-51 Mustangs with bombs and machine guns. And they're sitting around over the channel effectively, just whizzing around getting bored until someone calls them into action. And when you get a contact, which is what they call when you first meet the opposition, that's when you've got to make a decision. Do you stand and fight? Do you dig in and try and hold the ground? Do you try and go forward? And all of that. So we look as though we're getting very close to firing the cannon. Are we ready, guys? Okay, so cover your ears for young children, please. And here we go to signify the start of our action. I won't count it down because I don't know how quick the fuse is on this thing. Well, there we go. So that signifies the start of the action. So if we look up in the far corner, we see that our units they're mounting up, and they're gonna do it the lazy way. They're actually going to nose forward in vehicles because they can't be bothered to walk. They've been on their feet for 48 hours. They've come across the beachhead. They've been fighting and in these early days of D-Day, or after D-Day, people didn't get a lot of sleep. Those of us like me, I need 7 hours sleep a night, at least 3 or 4 nights a week. These guys live for weeks, sometimes months, on a couple of hours sleep in a very uncomfortable slit trench somewhere. So they were well, not superhuman, but they were built of better stuff than I am, and they really made us proud. So we're letting you go. Are we going to do another one, guys? Okay, sorry, we've got a third one to go as well. So keep your ears covered and be a little bit careful. Now this is the noisy bit I told you about. There will actually be an even noisier bit later, but this is the sort of level of noise that we're going to have most of the time. So if you actually look, there's quite a procedure. This is a muzzle-loading cannon. It's a genuine Civil War cannon. You have to cool the bore down first, then you have to put the powder in, then you have to put the shot in, then you have to ram it all together, you have to prime the fuse and then light it. It's not an easy task. You compare that to what we have today of a muzzle loader, of a breech loader, where it's all one thing, you just load it in and pull the string and it goes bang. But these, okay, there we go, that's the third one of those. These are very much they're a very hard work team, and you can see the guys that are actually loading it are very exposed to counter fire from the opposition. So being a gunner, you might not be at the front line, but you're still in quite a dangerous position. And there also, if the barrel gets too hot, you can get a premature explosion and it don't go right, and that can be very, very dangerous. So like I say, we've got our units having a bit of a nose around. They're trying to sort of like see where the Germans are. They know they're around somewhere. They've got to be a bit careful where they drive because we've also got charges laid out. So they're just having a bit of a nose around. They haven't spotted them yet. I'm not really sure that the Germans have spotted them either. Maybe they're still having breakfast. So it looks like we're now finished with the cannon. So well done on that, guys. Like I say, they are doing their own battle at 2:15. So please go and see them and have a chat with them about that and watch what they're up to. So, like I say, we've got our composite units. The Germans have actually spotted them now, so they're going to lay an ambush. The whole idea of an ambush is to try and get arcs of fire that are interlocking, so that whichever way they run, you still get them. But not to shoot yourselves, because one of the problems you've got if you're not careful is that if you have strength in depth, you can end up shooting your own people, which rather defeats the object. So we're coming around in different directions. They're actually probably going to run them into a false sense of security, and then at some point all hell will break loose. They talk about the fog of war, and you'll see what it's like in a minute. This turns into individual engagement. Although there's lots of numbers involved when you're doing this sort of thing, it actually almost becomes man to man, or a group of 2 or 3 people to a group of 2 or 3 people. No, that's not our Spitfire, that's our air observation one. Spitfire will be a bit later. So, like I say, we've actually got we've got contact now, so they're actually starting to deploy. We have a whole range of weapons. most of what we're using are either rifles or pistols. The Germans had some very good submachine guns called an MP. Sorry, I'll have to look at my notes. Called an MP40, which everybody calls a Spider, but it's not. That fires a 9mm round. They also have the Mg42 Machine Gun, probably the finest machine gun of the Second World War. We've got a number of these in action. We've got one near the public here on an anti-aircraft tripod, and we've got one behind the straw bales. Now, the MP44 fires 1,600 rounds a minute. Fires a 7.92 round, which is quite large, 7.92mm. It's bigger than the standard round that the Allies used. The Allies used a standard .303 for British Lee Enfield and machine gun, and the Americans used what they called a 30 caliber, a .3. So, as I say, what you're actually looking at here now is you're looking at a duel between small groups. But what we have got going on, if you look up to the far corner of the arena, we got the unit is split up, so they're actually going to try a pincer movement where they bring in, they come down the flank. Now, the Germans haven't been totally idiots. They've actually got a flank guard over this side who is there to stop them doing that. But he's a bit outnumbered, but he's well dug in, so he's reasonably well protected, and he's not going to be that easy to move. On the German side, we're using mainly Mg42s, machine pistols, and we're okay, so as I say, you'll see moving into small units. The flank guard is just come across to back up the flank guard. They've realised that unit's coming down. So if you look, we've got a pincer movement coming on, where we've got one group coming from underneath the trees on one side of the arena, and one group using the trees as cover on the other side of the arena. Now, trees are very good at absorbing bullets. They're good things to hide behind. We're having a reorganisation by the looks of it. We're going to move some of the troops from one side to the other and see if we can actually move things off in a better way. So we do appear to have a bit of a problem at the moment that the naval gunfire support we've got out in the Channel. Part of Operation Neptune, which was the seaside of D-Day, was 5,000 ships. A lot of them were warships, so we go from small motor torpedo boats and fast patrol boats up to huge, great big warships like the Missouri and Iowa. We've actually got Iowa on standby, but at the moment we haven't got contact with her to get the shells in. Now, Iowa has got huge, great big guns. They are 16-inch guns. They fire a shell of over a ton, 2,400 pounds, for up to 25 miles. So we're only a couple of miles inland, so we're well within the range of support from Iowa. We're still in range of support from the smaller ships as well, like the frigates and destroyers, which come in close to do that. But at the moment, the radio communication is not working with Iowa, so we can't actually get gunfire support. Likewise, we've called up the cam range system and asked the Spitfires after some air support. Now, normally you wouldn't know what was going to come in, but we know that we got a Spitfire coming in because it's coming from the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Now, those of you that know the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight will know they've actually got several Spitfires of different marks that they've restored. We're not really too sure which mark we got coming in this afternoon, but we do know that it is Spitfires coming in, whereas yesterday we had a Hurricane. Although this crosswind does make it a bit difficult for the Spitfire to come too low. You'll see that was a very good throw from over there of what they call a potato masher, which is the German hand grenade, which is actually a stick grenade, whereas the American and British troops use what's known as a Mills bomb, which is actually a hand grenade that looks like an overgrown egg. So, I say we've got on the German side we've got the machine pistols and the guns. We've also on the German side got the first ever assault rifle being used. Now, assault rifle is a combination of a machine gun, a submachine gun, and a rifle, and it fires the standard German 7.92 round. If you actually get a chance to go and talk to these guys at their encampment afterwards, ask to have a look at it. It's a very interesting bit of equipment. Very heavy, but that's our first assault rifle. So we have, we've moved the direction of the attack by the looks of it, so that down to my right, as I'm looking at the battle, it's a holding action, whereas it's getting more aggressive on the other side, trying to outflank it. We also have, whenever you have a unit like this in battle, there would always be a trained first aider with every unit. Not that they could do much. Generally, all they would do would be to stick a patch on you so you stop bleeding, maybe put some powder on it to stop it festering and getting an infection, and then stab you with morphine. And very often, again, if you see pictures of people being taken to the aid stations, you'll see an M written in their own blood on their head. That means that they've already had morphine. The idea of doing that is so that you don't overdose them, because you actually want to save them, not kill them by giving them too much morphine. So we've got a casualty on the German side. They're trying to drag him out of the way. The first thing to do is you don't treat the casualty in the line of fire. Get him safe, or them safe, and then treat them. But they're being overrun now by the US, and you see we've got a bit of hand-to-hand fighting going on here. It wasn't all done with weapons. Unarmed combat was one of the things that they actually teach you quite heavily, and you see that it's not unarmed anymore. They're carrying knives. Now, the knife did two things. It was a knife. It's called a combat knife. You could use it for opening your tins of beans when it's time for dinner. You can use it for cutting your bootlaces when you need to make some more bootlaces. You can use it to injure your opponent or defend yourself. But a lot of the time, certainly with the paratroopers, where all you were carrying, what you jumped to, the knife was also the bayonet that goes on the end of your rifle or your carbine. So it's a multi-purpose device, and if you ever look at them, they've usually got a ring on the side. That's where they actually clip onto the carbine on a rifle. So they've got rid of the American. He's the runner, and they're bringing the casualty to a safe position so he can be given first aid. Now, what he was carrying on his back is actually a Panzer Schreck, which is an anti-tank weapon, but it's also used as a bunker buster. It fires an 88mm round, a rocket basically. Everyone knows a bazooka, the American bazooka, but the American bazooka basically is a copy of the Panzer Schreck. The Americans first encountered it in the Tunisian campaign, thought it was a very good idea, and come up with their own version and called it a bazooka. It is actually a two-man operation, and where it uses a rocket, you mustn't stand anywhere behind it when you fire it, because the jet stream that makes the rocket go out also pushes backwards, and those who've done physics will know Newton's law that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, so you don't stand behind it. We still have our troops trying to creep up on the Germans. If you actually look, the number of Germans is dwindling, but they're still putting up a stiff fight. They're reloading at the moment. The Mg42, and when they throw a hand grenade at you, that's the best thing to do, is to actually run or dive into a hole, because they're horrible things. And here comes our Spitfire. So this is from the Battle of Britain Memorial flight. It will do 3 flypasts for us, waggle its wings and say goodbye. This will be coming in, and as you see it's banking around, it will come in, it will size up where the opposition is, and it would then actually come down and strafe the opposition. So this has got 8, depending on which version, it's got either 8 machine guns or 2 machine guns and 2 cannons. And right over our head, and you see now that the Mg42 anti-aircraft gun version is in practice to try and scare it off. So he's going to come round for another bite. He hasn't done enough damage on his first flight past, He's still got ammunition. Now, you've only actually got about 15 seconds of ammunition in one of these. That's the rate they fire at. But he's going to come past and give us another 2-second burst as he goes over. And that was... so we had another strafing run there. And these basically would come backwards and forwards until they run out of ammunition. Then they fly back to the UK, refuel and rearm, and someone else would take their position. We had, during this part of the war, we had total air superiority over the battlefield, which meant that these things roamed free, and they could do whatever they wanted. And there we get the wag of the wings. Thank you very much, Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. He's on his way to his next event now, and we've set something alight. So now using smoke is actually, you use it in two ways. One, the enemy can't see you, so you can either withdraw. So if you're under very heavy fire and you need to withdraw and regroup, you can actually you can let the smoke, you can lay smoke and you can withdraw under the cover of smoke. Or alternatively, you can put the smoke ahead of you and then you can creep up behind it, and the opposition doesn't know when you're going to pop out and start shooting. So the gentleman that's running across here now is actually holding a Mauser rifle that fires a 7.29 round. The German standard round was bigger than what the Allies were using. It had more stopping power, but it was also a heavier round to carry, so you couldn't carry so many rounds. And you'll see now that the Germans are actually withdrawing into one small pocket. So we've got our Allied troops are now trying to get closer to them, but they're still protected. They're still digging. They're still capable of causing a lot of damage. And we see things in war films where things get overrun in matters of seconds. It was never like that. This is a pre-representation. Even to gain a few yards of ground, it sometimes would take hours, sometimes, in fact, even sometimes days, because of the ferociousness of the defenders. The other thing that the Germans were renowned for was counter-attacking. Unfortunately, they're down to too few in numbers for this reenactment, but they would actually let the Allies think that they got the upper hand, and then rather than surrendering or ducking the opposition troops, it was a tactic they were well versed in. The German troops, their leaders were very well trained. They were designed, although they weren't on regimental lines, they were designed on lines of teams, and you would actually put different teams together for different events, and they would be called battle groups. So very well trained troops. Some of these troops are seasoned troops that had already been out on the Western Front, on the Eastern Front fighting the Russians. Although it's always thought that it was low-grade troops that were in Normandy, it wasn't. Some of the troops that were there were Hitler's best, and they certainly they made life very difficult. If you consider that one of the plans for D-Day was that on D-Day itself we were going to capture Caen, which was a major town in Normandy, and it actually took us 2 months to capture it. That's how fierce the opposition was, but D-Day was a tremendous success. The other thing you've got to remember is that you hear all these rounds going off. Every round that the Allied troops fire has got to be brought over from England. So it's got to be either made in England, made in Canada, made in America, shipped to England, sorted into various groups, loaded on trucks, and then taken across the Channel, landed either on the Mulberry or the Mulberry Harbour at Armagh, or over the beaches with the Americans, then brought up to forward supply dumps, and then from there resupply the frontline troops. So everything that the Americans, the English, the French are using has got to be brought over by the Navy. Now there was, on the UK side, there was an organisation called the Ministry of Supply that had civilian drivers that their only job was to collect things from one location and deliver it to another. Now they were civilians, they were not meant to actually go into battle. But the army, by this time, the army was so short of drivers that these guys were delivering these lorries of ammunition, food, supplies to places like Portsmouth, Southwick, Newhaven, Dover. And instead of just leaving them there, the Navy were loading them straight onto the ships and then taking them over to Normandy. And these unarmed civilians then had to drive these vehicles loaded up with very dangerous supplies to the forward supply dumps, and then be returned by the Navy back to the UK to go and get the next load and bring it across. And there, people like that, people like the Royal Navy crews, they're the unsung heroes. We all know here about the frontline troops. There was actually, believe it or not, there was a dedicated training school to landing craft coxswain. It was called HMS King Alfred, and it was at Hove in Sussex. And there were so many others, so many people were needed to keep the fighting troops supplied and working. Okay, it looks like we thought we'd got to surrender, but we haven't. They now look as though they're going to surrender. The corporal has just come in the British outfit. You'll see that he's carrying the what's known as the Tommy gun. Oh, we're trying to resist again. Back into our unarmed combat roles again. The paratrooper must be from the Cherokee tribe, as he's got an axe with him. So we've now this group nearest me have now surrendered, so we've got to get those under control. We've flattened out the other one that was trying to do a runner. Now, once you spent days, sometimes weeks, shooting at each other, but as soon as they put their hands up and surrender, then the Geneva Convention kicks in, and you have to treat them with respect. If they're injured, you have to make sure that you attend to their medical needs. But the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure they're fully disarmed. Because although they might throw their rifle down, they might have a knife hidden somewhere, or a small sidearm hidden somewhere. So you've got to be aware of that as well. And that's what's going on now. Is we're actually checking that, make sure that those that are dead are dead. Checking that those that are surrendered have actually given us all of the correct weapons, so they can't cause any problems. But like I say, once they've actually surrendered, the Geneva Convention kicks in. They will be treated, well, unless they try and do a runner like that. If someone can get one of their rifles to work, they're probably shooting. There you go. Yeah, it's going very far. As they say, the war for him is over. But so let's say, provided they've surrendered and they don't do a runner like that, then you do have to treat them with respect, and the Geneva Convention comes in. These once they've actually disarmed them and taken all the necessary equipment off them, they will be returned to the rear area, which in this case is still the beachhead, where they will be interrogated. The unit they come from will be worked out. They will then be put on a boat or a ship and sent back to England to prisoner of war. So for them, they got a year of internment to face now. Those that are injured will obviously get medical attention. Medics in wartime, although they may be on one side or the other, they have the hypocritical oath to do no harm to anybody. So they will treat any nationality, whether it's whatever side they're on. So we've now got we've got our people being looked after by medics. Oh, we've got another one that's trying to run away up there. They should know they don't get very far. We've still got 30 caliber machine guns in the American camp. We've taken over the Mg42s of the Germans, and we've got lots of firearms. They're unarmed, they're unlikely to get very far. So we're in the tidy up phase now. Once we've got everything tidied up, we'll bring the troops back here so you can see them. So we hope you've actually enjoyed that. We will be back again next year. There is lots more to be done today.